Hey folks, you have found, selected, and hit play on the Rocker Dog Podcast, the only podcast that talks to musicians about their canine companions. I'm your host, Tim Dill, coming to you under the watchful side eye of my doodle Charlie, and today we're happy to bring you our conversation with Rick Jimenez of the New York hardcore-tinged thrash metal band Extinction A.D., whose new LP, To The Detested, was released this past August 16th on Unique Leader Records. And these are his riotous rocker dogs.
Paco and Griffin.
Okay, now what breed and age are Paco and Griffin?
Griffin is 8 and Paco is 4, and they're both Cairn terriers.
And what can you tell me about that breed? Is that something specific that you got at one point and fell in love with and then got another one, or how did that come about?
It was the second favorite breed of my wife's family. Her family was a German Shepherd family and Rottweiler family, wound up with a Cairn terrier, and then that's our dog from now on. And that directed them, and then that kind of infiltrated its way into us.
Did your wife bring Griffin into the relationship?
Not exactly. Griffin was born after we started dating.
Okay.
Griffin is initially my wife Alyssa's parents' dog, who we've kind of pseudo-adopted, but right. I mean, also totally adopted. He lives with us and everything.
And then Paco is 4 years old. Where does the name Paco come from?
Nothing specific. It was more so we knew we wanted to give our dog a Latino name, but then once we got him or her, we'll figure out what it was then. And I know personally, I didn't even want to think like, oh, what are we going to name our dog? It was, we have to meet the dog and then it'll come to us. And it was pretty quick once we got him, and like, oh my God, Alyssa was like, what do you think about Pablo? I was like, I think it's Paco. She was like, oh my God, it is Paco. I said, all right, there it is.
And are they both boys?
Yes.
I found it funny because you had a post that said, he's the greatest, this is Paco. I'll make two comments.
Yeah.
You had a comment, or you posted that he's the greatest person on earth. Yeah. And I've heard this before from another guest, that you'd specifically say person. And it's funny that you do that he gets the respect of being, elevated from a canine to a human, respectfully. And that Paco dominates the social feed. So I was like, are you playing favorites? But I can see how Griffin maybe, he's like the older guy,
You know what it is with that? It's more, I'm almost like an affection socialist. Like if they're both in the same room, I cannot pet one more than the other. So, especially now, just I think the way I even bother using the internet, like, everything is like on my stories, which goes away so quick. Yeah. So it's, if you're looking at like my main feed, Instagram wise, it probably does favor Paco. Crazy or not, it's just kind of like, I never want one of them to feel like they're valued less than the other.
Yeah. No, of course. I mean, it makes perfect sense.
I mean, I'm also like obsessed with sniffing these two dogs' heads. So like, Paco was like 5 feet away. I'm sitting down, but he's walked past the office. He stopped, and then he walked into the bedroom. Let me just go get up and sniff his head. So
you do that?
Yes.
What does that do? Or what can you tell from that? Or are you just trying to imitate what a dog would do to another dog?
I think maybe I just love the way that they smell. It just, and this is way off the rails super early. I mean, like, I've always been like a smeller. Okay. If that makes any sense. Yeah. I mean, I'm 44 years old, and as you can see, I'm like a toy collector. I open these toys, and the first thing I do is smell them. Like,
that's interesting.
There's probably some like crazy like psychopath nature about it, but I mean, whatever. It's
funny that is a sense we underuse as humans, and that's a sense that dogs really rely on the most.
That's funny. I never once thought about it that way.
So the Cairn terriers, one of the things I enjoy about doing this show is I get to learn a lot about the dogs, and I wasn't really, when it was pointed out to me that you had these Cairn terriers, I immediately had to look them up. And it's really interesting to hear that they were these, working dogs bred to root out vermin, I guess, foxes, rats, and moles in the Scottish countryside. What do you know about them?
I didn't know anything before I met Griffin, I knew, oh yeah, it's Toto from Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
okay, cute. And it's funny, even my recollection of what Toto looked like as opposed to when we finally rewatched the movie, like let's watch, Griffin and Paco. First off, Toto looks a lot like the mixture of Griffin and Paco. He's so scruffy, and we tend to not keep Griffin or Paco scruffy. So beforehand, I knew nothing. And then
Mhm.
especially like, oh, we're naming Paco Paco. That is just so Latino. Looking up the heritage of these dogs, like
He's Scottish
Scottish.
Latino.
Like that's crazy. And then reading the oh, they have a lot of energy, but like you said, they were born hunters of vermin, which is crazy because we live on Long Island. We have squirrels everywhere. Our yard, we get little bunnies, so it's like Griffin, stay away from the bunnies.
I was going to
But
ask
that,
you that. They have that. Do they have that prey drive? Will they go after the squirrels and bunnies?
it's interesting because Paco is run, 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 super high energy. He's like the barker in an aggressive way, but he doesn't know he's being aggressive. He sees a dog walking on the road. If we're on a leash, he's barking. But it's like if we were off leash, he'll play with every dog. So I would have thought Paco would have been like the hunter. He'll run after a squirrel, but he'll run because he likes to chase.
Yeah.
Now Griffin is a bit more of the smiley, kind of a bit more doofy, uncoordinated. When we open the door for them to go out, because we have a backyard, Paco a million miles an hour. Griffin would kind of bounce behind him, uh, go on the edge of the deck. Griffin, go do your business. He'll go and do his business. He's happy to come in. It's like a pain in the ass to get Paco back in. But if Griffin spots like one of the little bunnies, he's on a mission. Where Paco actually, if he'll follow Griffin around to play, but he's not going to touch another animal.
Yeah.
So it's crazy how their personalities kind of like zigzag on the typical Cairn Terrier characteristics.
Right. Do they dig up the yard?
No, thankfully not. Griffin, I think, is too lazy to do it, and Paco is more. He just wants to run around and like, oh, there's a bird there. I'm gonna run in and look at the bird and bark at him. Like, oh, I
Yeah.
heard somebody walking across the street. Like, hey, I'm over here. But as far as like actually doing bad things, they
Yeah.
kind of really can't be bothered to do anything overly mischievous.
Well, that's good to hear. Another trait I read about that they were highly intuitive and empathetic. So that leads me to ask, do they know your moods? Do they come in emotional support at times?
So much so differently. Griffin is more of, and again, this could be so much like owner projection, which I feel like I'm so guilty of, but whatever.
Well, we all
Uh,
are.
yeah, right. I feel like Griffin is more of the, oh, I'll just come and hang out by you, be chill. Maybe I'll be a chilling presence where I feel like, say I'm bummed out about something. And I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna kind of bum out on the couch and like, hey, Paco, you want to come hang out? He might come and hang out, and he'll like lay on the floor and pass out on the floor. Like, so I'm here. If there's a situation where I'm like so frustrated, and I'm like easily frustrated with certain things, like, oh, I'm trying to get this new piece of guitar gear to work, or I'm trying to figure out how to get this editing software for a video to work. And all these levels of like, oh, that's serious to like, yo, that's not serious, you're overreacting. And I'm so frustrated. I'm just like stomping around. Paco is the type where, oh, something's wrong. I'm going to follow you around. So much so that that's when I get like out of like, oh, hey, Paco, hey, puppy. Voice to Paco, I understand you're trying to help me, but I need some space. I just need to get over there. And he'll follow me around to kind of, and like sit there and like watch me and again, I'm sure I'm projecting, but like, hey, are you okay? I just want to make sure if you're not okay, I'm here. But it's like, it's funny when I'll change my voice to talking to him very seriously. Paco, I really understand you're trying to help me right now, but please just give me some space while I freak out. So I'm talking to him 100% like a regular human, and I'm kind of frustrated by thing A, and I'm trying not to take it out on him. And then I'm also laughing at myself knowing not only just the whole situation is absurd, but like, oh, Paco's acting just like you, right? Paco is me and Griffin is my wife, Alyssa. Like
Okay. I
we
love
straight
that.
up like me and Paco look the same. We have the same color hair, even down to like the little bit of like he has like white highlights because of his coat, but I'm
Uh-huh.
just have gray because I'm getting old. And Alyssa is like blonde and uncoordinated and just like so sweet and pure and innocent. So it's really we talk about it like constantly. Like he'll walk up the stairs to like say hi in the kitchen and then just slip, and I'll be like, "Yo, that's your dog. That is you." And then Paco would be like just hanging out. We open the door, like, "Hey, 100 miles an hour. Let's run around for no reason." It's like, "Oh, that is me."
That's great. It's funny. I was going to ask something like that if any one of the dogs was an extension of you or your personality, which you just answered. But it's interesting to see that the two, how different the two are. And where I wanted to go was looking at Extinction A.D. and some of the descriptions of your music. Could these descriptions be used for either one of the dogs? So let's put these. I've got four descriptions. The first one is relentless. Do either of the dogs fit that description?
They both do in different ways, in very different ways. When it is 5:55 in the morning, Griffin is relentless. If he's in our room, there is no chance he's not eating within 3 minutes
Right.
because he's not letting anybody sleep. Now, when Paco wants to play, you are not playing with Paco.
All right. The second description is, and again, this is what was describing Extinction AD music, ferocious.
Neither. Neither
Okay.
of those dogs are ferocious. Paco pretends sometimes, but I mean, he's a little guy, you know.
Yeah.
So no.
Okay. I mean, the next one's probably is actually the same meaning as ferocious, but I just love the expression, but it's unbridled aggression.
You know what? If there is a hose, Paco might have a bit of unbridled aggression. If there is a woman coming into the house for the first time that Griffin has never met, there will be 2 minutes of holding back his unbridled aggression.
Is he just being vocal, or does he want a
The-
taste?
yeah, he gets a little humpy.
And the last one is riotous. I see it as kind of up for a devastatingly good time.
You know what? The way, even with Extinction AD, I could see that being used both ways. As far as, hey, we're gonna cause a stir. We have some stuff to say, and we got some beef behind our music. Like, let's turn this place into a riot. And then there's also the lighthearted version. Hey, our music is very serious. Our riffs, like, again, are beefy.
Yeah.
We're at a show to get away from the stress of everything else. Let's just have unbelievable amounts of fun. Let's let it out. In that way, both of the dogs can fit into that. Like as a hose or a pool, Paco is having a lighthearted Extinction AD riot. The only time I think they would get riotous in the other way is around here, maybe June 20th through August 5th, because people are obsessed with fireworks for like a full month and a half over here for some reason.
And this is what I'm calling, force fitting a question into kind of the band context again. But your new LP, To The Detested, and in the PR materials I was given, there's a quote in there that says, "Humans are steadily losing their humanity in the current state of things. So finding a way to survive without becoming a monster yourself is becoming increasingly difficult." Now, again, to force fit a dog question into this context, I'm curious if these dogs teach you anything about being more human.
Absolutely. So much so, even in the most selfish way, it's a constant reminder that I am not this tough exterior facade that some people might jump to thinking when they see me physically. I mean, I'm a little guy, but I'm a gym guy. And our band is just so ferocious, and we're screamy with a little bit of melody, but the melody is also so harsh and it's heavy. And then the lyrics are, I don't want to say misanthropic. That I think might be an over exaggeration as well as a little pigeonholed, but there we have no qualms about speaking of the ills of the world and the odd, steady decline in how we choose to use our brains that have been in an evolution for millions of years. Like, we should all know better than to
Yeah.
let things get to a certain level. I even think if I have to classify myself with those factors, like, oh, you're just like a calloused steel suit of armor type, and playing in
Here
the
they come.
dogs bring out a side in me that, oh, like, you are one soft little boy. And I'm like, I have no problem with that, because that calloused thing that is so easily put on me, that's one facet of me. There's millions of facets to everybody. Like I said, selfishly, it's a reminder that I can talk about the ills of society from my point of view, and I can express how I feel like I'm becoming calloused to the human experience, even though what I'm writing about is wanting to break through not just mine, but everybody else's callous to the human experience. I want everybody to have a great human experience with your fellow humans. But it is hard, especially in the modern day, when so much of living is navigating through this divisive
Yeah.
waters of life, and then to have these like two creatures that are nothing but purity. Like, how could that not melt you every single time you even remember that they exist? And I even think it's funny when the other guys in the band see me with my dogs. They're like,
Right.
this is so ridiculous. But again, I think that works, especially like I said, with Paco, how I feel like we're so similar. We're like, we're both little brown guys that kind of give off that we think we're like, oh, we're little, but we're these big mean guys. And like, Paco's like a big mush.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that one of the traits was fearlessness. And I guess, when you are considering that they had to go dig holes and push out moles and foxes, it takes a little bit of, bravery.
Yeah, and that is something I could relate to also, as far as, hey, I have a mission, and it may or may not be a mission that is easy or difficult, but it's kind of what I was bred to do and what's instilled in me. So I guess maybe I have that in common with the breed overall.
Yeah. Well, just looking at the clock, we should wrap things up with the zoomies. That's the last 5 questions, mostly frivolous. First one is, do you kiss Paco and Griffin on the mouth?
I don't, but if I tried, neither one of them would stand there or like let me do it. Like
They wouldn't
Paco
accept it.
especially. But like, I will get as close as possible. But so long as it's not directly right on, they're not gonna move. But like, I'll kiss Paco like right on like the top of his snout, like over and over and over again. And with Griffin, he'll let me just like go nose to nose with him. So I like go nose to nose and like make kissing sounds and just kind of like boop them. But it's not like an intentional aversion. I
Yeah.
just think like the direct like,
That's what works.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Question 2. Let's do Paco and Griffin, each one of them. Their theme song. What would their walk-up music to the plate be?
Oh boy, I was like super prepared for this question, especially because I know so much specifics about one. But when you throw the baseball reference into it, it's like throwing my mind into it. From the very, very beginning of when Paco came into our lives, whenever I would do a night walk, the first time I did a night walk with Paco, I remember straight up saying, "Hey Paco, what do you want to listen to?" And then thinking it was so funny to put Bark at the Moon on my phone.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, how funny. We're listening to Bark at the Moon and it's, dark out. And then it became like a tradition. It was like, if we're ever going out at night, it's Bark at the Moon and then Shot in the Dark, 2 Ozzy songs from like the glam era of Ozzy, which I think is great. But Griffin, because he's so kind of like doon doon, like kind of a bit more doofy, I think whenever we even do like Griffin's theme, it's kind of just like making up some type of bouncy circus music,
Right.
like, with our mouths. So yeah, Paco would get Ozzy and Griffin would just get some type of like generic circus music.
All right. Question 3. I know they don't go on tour with Extinction AD, but hypothetically, if they did, what would they want on their tour rider?
Ooh, Paco would definitely prefer peanut butter. So I always put peanut butter in my protein shakes, and I know when I'm done with the workout, I'm about to do a protein shake. Like the blender comes out, both of them running up the stairs because they know they're going to get like a tiny lick of the peanut butter off the knife, of which I feel like I'm screaming right now, and Alyssa's going to hear me right now. And she doesn't know that I do this every single day. So Paco would definitely have peanut butter, and Griffin, I always, if I'm eating an apple, I will always sneak, like I'll take off a tiny bit of like the top skin and then feed it to him. Same thing. It started off as a joke because I feel like either one of them eating something that crunches audibly for some reason is so funny to me.
Yes, I love it. Question 4. I've gotten some indications just by this interview, but do you have a dog voice?
Yeah, and it's so crazy because I feel like it's one of those things before I did it consistently, I would never let anybody catch me. Now I couldn't care less. But like as soon as I get home, like, oh hey puppies, oh Pac, oh he's a good boy, oh Griffey, I'm so happy to see you. But then it also goes back to like just talking to them like they're my boys. Oh
Yeah.
Griff, you want to go for a walk? Paco, you want to go for? All right, come on.
Yeah.
I have my
Do
regular
you,
voice and I have the little baby voice.
do you give them a voice as well? Animate them?
Yes.
So what's the difference between the two? What's Paco and Griffin? What do their personalities sound like?
So, do you remember the one kid with the really scratchy voice from the Little Rascals?
Not Froggy.
Froggy.
Okay.
So we give, or I just assume Paco has Froggy's voice. Hey,
Yeah.
I want to go to bed. You know what? That's not even the right voice, but hopefully you know what I'm doing.
Yeah, yeah.
And Griffin, we give more of just kind of like a human little boy voice.
Right.
I want to come way down. Can you help me get up? This is crazy that I'm doing this on recording right now.
Yeah, there's gonna be a couple of Extinction AD fans that are gonna question their allegiance.
Yeah, right. That's fine. That's fine. I love these guys.
All right, and last but not least, I always ask if there's a dog organization or a service that you'd like to give a shout out to.
Yeah, actually, there is two, if you don't mind,
Yeah.
real quick. Alyssa's cousin runs the Setauket Animal Hospital. And Setauket is just a town on Long Island. And he does an amazing job. And we wound up getting Paco during, I think it was like the very beginning of the summer of COVID. And they were so good about taking in animals still and doing whatever they got to do with kind of a wait outside, everybody masked, one at a time, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
And now that everyone's going inside and everything, like, to me, when I go into the animal hospital and I see a bunch of dogs like having the best time of their life, I know both Paco and Griffin, like they treat going to the animal hospital like they're going to like their best friend's birthday party. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, this place is great. But also, we are playing this benefit show in Pittsburgh, and it's kind of like a festival thing called Steel City Strays, and it's for this organization called Orphans of the Storm, which I just recently found out about, and like, oh, we're gonna play this show. It was proposed like, hey, I know you guys are on tour, but we're putting together the show. It's on your route. It is a benefit show, and I'm not like Mr. Capitalist guy anyway. So like, oh, we can't really pay you too much. Like, I want to be able to make it from show to show and have a good time. So it's like, oh, but it's a benefit, and they're like, it's Steel City Strays. It's for this organization. And the promoter explained the organization to me. Then I looked it up. This is an organization from Kittanning, Pennsylvania, which is right outside Pittsburgh. They've been around since 1969. They're a no-kill shelter where from all around, but specifically in this like Pittsburgh and the outer lying areas of Pittsburgh, they'll take in strays, unwanted and abused animals, give them all the like vet needs that they need, and then try to foster or just straight up find homes for them. And the fact that when I was looking into it, they're almost volunteer based.
Yeah.
And they like go in and out of solid hours and then fluctuating hours depending on how many volunteers they have. But for over 50 years, steadfast to being a no-kill shelter. So looking into all of that, I'm like, I would love to play this show for this organization. It sounds amazing. And then doing more research, I saw in 2023, they rehomed 650 or a little over 650 pets, with 500 of them being dogs in a year.
Great.
I'm like, that's insane. Once I was like that, they're rehoming more than one, on average, more than one dog a day.
Yeah.
In this area. That's to me, that's like God level amounts of effort and like goodwill to put into the world.
That's great. And when is that going to be?
It will be in the past at this point. That was September 7th in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Well, we'll put their information in the show notes, and people can look them up and give them some support themselves. On that topic of touring, again, we're into the fall now. What's the plan for the band the rest of the year?
As of this time, we're going to play one more show in New York, in Queens. And then towards the end of the year, we'll be doing another group of dates away from home to support the new record. And then 2025, post January, February, we're hopefully going to be back on the road and hitting it hard, supporting To The Detested. So, trying to finish 2024 strong and then really, really just decimate 2025.
Awesome. Well, Rick, thanks for giving me your time. Thanks for giving me more on Paco and Griffin. It's always a pleasure of mine to hear about the dogs and kind of, like I said, force fit them into the context of what you do as a band and as a musician and an artist. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate the time and being able to just chat about my two sons for a while.
Always my pleasure.